I thought I was overreacting when my boss asked me to host his entire family for a week. But then he said the company would pay for his accommodations if I said no. Let me back up. I've worked at this company for a long time. I'm the one who holds everything together, but I never get the credit. Meanwhile, there's this guy I'll call Bob. Bob used to report to me, but over the years he got promoted for being a family man. The CEO, who I call Dick because he is one, worships Bob. When Bob's wife became a stay-at-home mom, Dick found it admirable and gave Bob a raise. Bob started showing up late, missing work, sometimes sleeping at his desk, but that didn't matter. Dick saw Bob as the golden boy. I, on the other hand, got silently demoted after I had my baby. Nothing about my performance changed. Dick just stopped liking me, like a spoiled older child jealous of a new sibling. That's a whole other story. So about a year ago, Bob and his family had to move across the country due to a family emergency. Within a week of settling in, he got another promotion. At that point, he went from being under me to being at my level. Then a couple months ago, he got promoted again to the highest level possible. Now he outranks me. Imagine my surprise when he texted me asking me to house his wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January. He mentioned paying for his own accommodations as an afterthought, like I would be doing him a favor by letting them stay, but if I couldn't, no big deal, the company could cover a hotel. I was gobsmacked, utterly gobsmacked. I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I was demoted for having the audacity to become a mother. Bob gets praised for being a good dad while I get penalized for being a good mom. And now he wants me to host his family. Get the absolute fuck out of here. I didn't say that out loud at first. I stared at my phone, rereading his message. My heart pounded. I wanted to scream, but I took a breath and texted back, "No, that doesn't work for me. I'm sure you can find a hotel." Polite but firm. I didn't owe him an explanation. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Dick. He said he heard I wasn't being a team player. He wanted to schedule a meeting. That meeting was in an hour. I felt sick. I knew Dick would take Bob's side. He always did. I went to the meeting. Dick sat behind his big desk, not looking up. "So," he said, "Bob mentioned you refused to help him out. I thought you two had a good working relationship." "We do," I said, "but hosting his family is not a work relationship. That's a personal favor, and I'm not comfortable with it." Dick finally looked up, eyebrows raised. "Personal favor? He's a colleague. He needs support. You're the one who always says how family-oriented you are." "My family is my priority," I said, "and not having a stranger's toddler and dog in my home doesn't make me unfamily-oriented." Dick leaned back. "I think you're overreacting. Bob will be here on a business trip. His family came along to save money. It's a week. You have the space, right?" "I have a small house," I said, "and I have my own life. I'm not a hotel." "You're being difficult," Dick said. "I'm going to ask you to reconsider. Think about the team. Think about your future here." That was a threat. I knew it. I sat there feeling the weight of 4 years of no raises, of being demoted, of watching Bob climb the ladder while I stayed stuck. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. I just said, "I'll consider it," and walked out. I didn't reconsider. I went straight to HR. I knew it was a risk. Dick had the CEO's ear, but I couldn't let this slide. I explained the request, the pressure, the threat. The HR person nodded and said they'd look into it. Nothing happened. Dick called me in again the next day. This time he was angry. "I hear you went to HR," he said. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Bob is hurt. He thought you were friends." "We're coworkers," I said, "not friends. And friends don't ask friends to host their family for a week without warning." Dick shook his head. "You have an attitude. I think you need some time off. Unpaid, of course. Reflect on your priorities." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said fine and left. I went home and started updating my resume. I knew I couldn't stay. This place was toxic. It had been toxic for years. I just kept hoping it would get better. But it never did. That was 3 weeks ago. I've been sending out applications every day. Bob's family ended up staying in a hotel. The company paid for it. Dick told me it was my fault for not being flexible. I didn't respond. I'm done responding. Now I'm just waiting for the right offer. And trying not to let the bitterness eat me alive. Because honestly, this whole situation made me realize how much I've been undervalued. Not just by Bob, not just by Dick, but by myself for staying so long. I'm not the only one with a workplace nightmare. My next story is about a coworker who decided to play detective, and not the fun kind. She wanted to prove I was faking my disability, and she filmed me outside work to do it. I thought I was overreacting when my coworker started following me outside of work. But then she pulled out her phone and filmed me, to prove I wasn't really disabled. Let me back up a bit. I have chronic pain, not the kind that shows up on an X-ray or a blood test, the kind that lives in your bones and muscles and never really goes away. I try to explain it to people like this. Imagine you're at a steady 6 out of 10 on the pain scale every single day. Normal people might hit a 2 or 3 after a long day. For me, 6 is my baseline. Some days it spikes to an 8 or 9. Rare days I dip to a 4, and on those days I feel like I can conquer the world. But most days I'm just managing. I have canes. I only use them when I'm at a 7 or above. I have a handicap placard on my rearview mirror. I have a license plate marker. I filed all the paperwork with my job years ago just in case I ever needed accommodations. I'm legally disabled, physically disabled, but you wouldn't know it just by looking at me on a good day, and that's where the problem started. I work 2 jobs. My full-time job pays the bills. My part-time job is something I actually enjoy. It's at a location closer to home and they expanded recently, so they brought me on to help out. My boss Amy is amazing, really supportive, really understanding. My colleague Casey and I are both assistant coordinators to Amy. Casey has been gunning for a promotion for as long as I've known her. Everyone knows it. I don't want a promotion. My part-time gig is just that, part-time. I already have a full-time job. I do this one to pad my savings and keep my brain busy. Being busy helps with my anxiety. Casey didn't like that. She wanted that promotion badly and she saw me as a threat, even though I literally told her, I don't want it, you can have it. She didn't believe me, she thought I was lying, that I was secretly angling for the same role she wanted. So she started watching me. At first it was subtle. She'd comment on how I walked into the office. You seem fine today, she'd say with a little smirk, or while you're not using your cane today, that must be nice. I'd just shrug and say, it's a good day. But she didn't buy it. She thought I was faking, that I was somehow exaggerating my condition to get special treatment. One day I came into work using my cane. It was a rough morning. My pain was sitting at about a 7. I was moving slow, trying not to wince with every step. Casey watched me from her desk. She didn't say anything, but I saw her phone in her hand. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured she was texting. Then the next week I had a really good day. I woke up at a 4, that's rare. I felt almost normal. I left my cane at home. I walked into the office without a limp. I was smiling. Casey was already there. She looked at me and her face twisted, like she just caught me in a lie. You're walking fine today, she said. Good day, I said. It happens. She didn't say anything else, but she watched me all day. I could feel her eyes on me. It was unsettling. A few days later, I got a call from Amy. She sounded uncomfortable. She asked me to come to her office. I walked in and saw Casey sitting there, arms crossed, looking smug as hell. Amy had her laptop open. On the screen was a video. It was me leaving my house. I was walking to my car without a cane. I was laughing at something on my phone. I looked completely normal. The video was taken from a distance, probably from a car parked across the street. Amy looked at me. Casey brought this to my attention, she said slowly. She claims. She says you're not actually disabled, that you've been faking it. I stared at the screen, then at Casey. My heart started pounding. Where did you get that? I asked. I filmed it, Casey said, not even trying to hide it. I knew you were lying. I saw you walking fine, so I followed you after work one day. I waited outside your house and I got the proof. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt this cold anger settle in my chest. You stalked me, I said. You followed me to my home and filmed me without my consent. That's illegal. Casey rolled her eyes. It's not illegal to film someone in public, and you were in your driveway. That's public. It's not public, I said. It's my property and you were parked across the street. That's stalking. Amy held up her hand. Let's all calm down, she said. I need to understand what's going on. Casey, you filmed a coworker without her knowledge. That's a serious issue. Casey crossed her arms tighter. I did what I had to do. She's been lying. Look at the video. She's walking perfectly. No cane, no limp. She's fine. She's not disabled. She's just lazy and wants special treatment. She doesn't deserve accommodations. I took a deep breath. I have a chronic pain condition, I said. Some days are good, some days are bad. On good days, I don't need a cane. That doesn't mean I'm not disabled. You don't get to decide what my body feels. Amy nodded slowly. She looked uncomfortable. Casey, I appreciate you bringing concerns to my attention, but this is not the way. You can't follow people. You can't film them. That's crossing a line. Casey stood up. You're taking her side. She's a liar. I have proof. And you're just going to let her get away with it. I'm not taking anyone's side, Amy said. I'm saying this needs to be handled properly. You need to delete that video. And we need to have a conversation about boundaries. Casey didn't delete it. She said she would, but I could tell she was lying. She walked out of the office and I was left standing there with Amy. Amy apologized. She said she'd talk to HR, but I knew it wasn't going to end there. I went home that night and tried to calm down. I thought about filing a police report. But honestly, I didn't think they'd take me seriously. I'm black, I'm in Texas, and I'm disabled. That's a triple whammy. Cops in the South don't exactly bend over backward to help people like me. A week went by, nothing happened. Casey avoided me at work, but she still gave me dirty looks. I kept my head down. I was trying to move on, but then I got an email from HR. They wanted to meet with me. I thought maybe they were finally taking action. I walked into the meeting. HR was there, plus Amy and Casey. Casey looked smug again. She had her phone out. We need to discuss the video, HR said. Casey has shown us additional footage. She claims you have been misrepresenting your disability to receive undue benefits, such as the handicap placard and preferential parking. I felt my stomach drop. Additional footage. She filmed me more than once, Casey shrugged. I wanted to be thorough. I have 3 videos now, all showing you walking perfectly. No cane, no limp. You look like a completely healthy person. I looked at HR. She stalked me multiple times. That's illegal. HR shifted in their seat. We understand your concern, but we also have to consider the company's liability. If you are misrepresenting your disability, that could be a serious issue. I'm not misrepresenting anything, I said. I have medical documentation. I filed it with you. I have a diagnosis. I have a treatment plan. This isn't something I made up. We may need to ask for updated medical records, HR said, to verify. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I just nodded. Fine, I'll get you whatever you need, but I want to file a complaint against Casey for stalking and harassment. HR looked at Casey. Casey rolled her eyes. It's not stalking, it's just proving the truth. The meeting ended without any resolution. They said they'd look into it. I went home and spent the night crying. I felt violated, I felt humiliated, and I felt so tired. I did get my medical records, I sent them to HR. They confirmed my disability, but still nothing happened to Casey. She got a warning, that's it, a warning. She's still working there. She still gives me dirty looks. She still tries to undermine me at every turn. I started looking for a new job. I couldn't stay somewhere where my privacy meant nothing, where my disability was put on trial by a coworker with a phone and a grudge. It's been 2 months now, I still haven't left. The job market is terrible, but I'm saving up. I'm sending out applications, I'm trying to stay hopeful. And every time I see Casey, I remind myself that I don't have to prove anything to her. My pain is real, my disability is real, and no amount of video footage will change that, but I still wish I had screamed. I wish I had told her exactly how much she hurt me. Instead, I just walked away. And I'm still walking, even on the bad days, especially on the bad days. That story hit close to home for a lot of people. But not every workplace horror story involves stalking. Sometimes it's just a boss who thinks you're his personal concierge. And I've got one of those. I'm a mid-level manager at a company where the CEO is basically a walking stereotype. Let's call him Dick because he is one. Dick has this golden boy named Bob. Bob got promoted 3 times in 2 years because he had a kid and his wife became a stay-at-home mom. Meanwhile, I had a baby a few years ago and got silently demoted. No raise in 4 years. My workload didn't change, but my title did. And Dick treats me like I'm the office mom, the person you dump things on because you assume she'll just handle it. Anyway, Bob moved across the country for a family emergency about a year ago. Got another promotion as soon as he settled. Then a couple months ago, he got promoted again. Now he outranks me, so imagine my surprise when I get a text from him out of the blue. This was early December, he said. Hey, my wife, toddler, and dog are going to be in town for a week in January. Can they stay at your place? I'll ask the company to pay for your accommodations if that doesn't work. I read that text 3 times. I thought I was misreading it. He's asking me to house his entire family for a week. Not ask if I'm free, not ask if I have space. Just, can they stay? And then the afterthought about the company paying for my accommodations, meaning he wants to put me up in a hotel while his family takes over my home. Or is he expecting me to just let them crash in my spare room? I don't have a spare room. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. 1 room is mine, 1 is my kids. Where is his family supposed to sleep? On the couch? I didn't respond right away. I was too stunned. I called my husband. He said, absolutely not. That's insane. Then I called my best friend. She laughed and said, tell him to get a hotel. So I texted Bob back. I said, I'm sorry, but that's not going to work for me. I don't have the space and it's not appropriate for me to host your family. I'd suggest looking into hotels or Airbnbs. He replied within 2 minutes, can you make it work? It's a big ask, I know, but it would really help us out. I didn't answer. I just screenshot the conversation and saved it. I have a feeling this isn't over. The next day, Dick calls me into his office. I'm thinking it's about some project, but no, he brings up Bob's request. Bob mentioned he asked you for a favor. He said you declined. Is that true? I said yes. I explained I don't have the space and I don't think it's appropriate for a coworker to host another coworker's family, especially when outranking me. Dick frowned. Bob is a good dad, he's doing his best, his wife needs a break, I think you could be a little more accommodating. I wanted to say, accommodating, he's not my friend, he's not my relative, he's a colleague, and I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years while he's been promoted for having a kid, why should I help him? But I didn't. I just said, I'm sorry, but I can't. Dick let it go, but I could tell he was annoyed. Bob didn't text me again. But now every time I see Bob in meetings, he gives me this cold look, like I'm the one who's being unreasonable. And the worst part, Bob ended up booking a hotel. The company paid for it, so it wasn't even about money. It was about him thinking I would just say yes because I'm the office mom, because I'm supposed to take care of everything. I've started looking for a new job. I can't work in a place where my value is measured by how much I'm willing to sacrifice for someone else's convenience. Fuck that. That story reminded me of another one. About a woman who kept her personal life completely separate from work until a nosy coworker decided to dig. I worked in an office for 9 years. I climbed the ladder, made good friends, but I never once talked about my home life, not because I'm ashamed, because I believe in boundaries. I don't want my coworkers knowing about my husband, my twin daughters, my hobbies. I want to be judged on my work, not on whether I'm a good mom or a bad wife. But then Melinda got hired. She's the office snoop. She spends weeks getting close to people, learning their secrets, and then using that information to hold power over them. I saw her do it to others. Hank told her about his divorce, and suddenly she was making comments about how he must be distracted during meetings. Rob mentioned his son had ADHD, and Melinda started questioning whether Rob could handle deadlines. Lucy shared a photo from her vacation, and Melinda started asking why Lucy could afford a trip when she always complained about being broke. So I kept my mouth shut. I never gave her anything. I redirected questions. I talked about books and movies and the weather. Melinda hated it. I could see her frustration building. Then one Friday, she walked into the office with this smug grin. At lunch, she announced to everyone, did you know that Alexandra is married to a doctor? She has twin daughters, a dog, a nice house. She plays softball, kayaks, and mountain climbs, and she's on Facebook using a shortened version of her name. Everyone stared at me. I felt my face go red, not from embarrassment, from anger. She had stalked me online. She used white pages or something to connect the dots. My Facebook profile is set to private, but some of my photos are shared publicly because I post in community groups. I don't post about work, I never mention where I work, but my married name and my maiden name are there. She found me. Later that day, my boss called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. Melinda came to me with some concerns, he said. She says you've been hiding your personal life. That you're not being transparent with the team. Is that true? I said, I'm not hiding anything. I just don't discuss my personal life at work. It's not relevant, he frowned. It's relevant if it affects your work. Melinda seems to think you're being secretive because you have something to hide. She has suggested you might be misrepresenting your availability. I couldn't believe it. Melinda had turned my privacy into a character flaw. I told my boss I have never misrepresented anything. My work speaks for itself. He nodded, but I could tell he was leaning toward Melinda's side. She's a favorite of the department because she's so open and friendly. I went home that night and thought about quitting. But I've been there 9 years, I have seniority, I have a good reputation. So instead I went to HR, I filed a complaint about Melinda's invasion of privacy and her attempt to weaponize my personal life against me. HR took it seriously, surprisingly. They told Melinda to stop, but she didn't stop, she just got more subtle. Now she makes comments in passing. How are the twins? They must be so much fun. Or, I hope your husband's surgery went well. She's trying to force me to engage. I just smile and change the subject. But it's exhausting. I shouldn't have to defend my right to keep my home life private. My coworkers know I'm married and have kids now. That's fine. But I won't let Melinda control the narrative. I'll keep doing my job, and if she keeps pushing, I'll escalate, because some boundaries are worth fighting for, even if it means fighting alone. But sometimes the invasion goes way beyond a coworker digging into your Facebook. Sometimes it gets physical, sometimes it's about your own body. I have a condition called chronic pain. I know everyone says they have aches and pains, but this is different. Imagine your pain level from 1 to 10. Normal people sit at a 1 or 2 most days, maybe a 3 after a bad workout. I sit at a 6 every single day, like a pulled muscle that never heals. Some days it's higher, a 7 or 8. Rare blessed days I'm at a 4, but I've learned to function. I work 2 jobs, I stay active. I have a full-time job and a part-time one. I'm physically and legally disabled. I have all the paperwork filed with HR, a handicap placard on my car, the whole deal. I own canes, but I only use them on days when I'm at a 7 or above. Most days I can push through. I was recently moved to a new location closer to home. I loved my new team. My boss, Amy, was great. My colleague Casey and I were both assistant coordinators, same position. Casey wanted a promotion badly, everyone knew it. I didn't. My position was part-time and I already had a full-time job. I did this job because I liked it and it helped with my anxiety. Casey worked her ass off trying to prove she deserved the promotion. I just did my job and went home. Casey was suspicious of me from the start. I think she saw me as competition, even though I told her I wasn't interested. She kept asking why I had a handicap placard when I seemed fine. I explained my condition. She nodded but didn't believe me, I could tell. Then one Sunday I had a bad pain day, a solid 7. I used my cane. I went to the grocery store. I parked in a handicap spot, used my placard, hobbled inside. I was in and out in 10 minutes, nothing unusual. The next day at work, Casey was acting weird, smirking. I ignored her. Then around lunch, she called me into the break room. She had her phone out. She showed me a video. It was me at the grocery store, walking from my car to the store. But here's the thing, the video was taken from a distance. It showed me getting out of my car, putting my cane in the trunk, and walking normally for about 5 seconds before I started limping again. She had cropped it to make it look like I was faking. She said, I knew it, you're not disabled, you're just using the placard so you can park close. I'm going to report you to Amy and to HR. I was shaking, not from fear, from rage. I said, you followed me, you took video of me without my consent, that's illegal. She laughed. It's public property. I was in the parking lot, you have no expectation of privacy, and I have proof you're a fraud. I went straight to Amy. I told her what happened. Amy looked at the video. She said, Casey, this is completely inappropriate. You cannot stalk a coworker. This is harassment. Casey argued that she was just exposing a faker. Amy shut her down. She told Casey to delete the video and apologize. Casey refused. Amy escalated to HR. HR interviewed both of us. I showed them my medical documentation. I explained that chronic pain fluctuates. Some moments I can walk without a limp, especially if I've just gotten out of the car and my muscles are warm. That doesn't mean I'm not in pain. They seemed to understand. They told Casey to stop. Casey agreed, but I could see the resentment. That should have been the end, but it was. A week later, I got a call from the police. Casey had filed a complaint against me claiming I was illegally using a handicap placard. The police had to investigate. I had to go to the station, show them my doctor's note, my registration. They verified everything. They told me Casey's complaint was baseless. But they couldn't do anything about the video because it was taken in a public place. I was furious. I went back to HR. I said, she filed a false police report. That's harassment. You need to do something. HR said they'd look into it, but nothing happened. Casey is still there. She still gives me dirty looks. She makes comments like, oh, you're using your cane today, bad day, as if she's mocking me. Amy told me to document everything I keep a log. I have screenshots of her texts. I have the video she showed me saved on my phone. I've gone to the police again to report the stalking. They said they'd take a report, but it's not a priority. I'm black, I'm in Texas, I'm disabled. The cops don't take me seriously, I know that. But I'm not going to let Casey win. I've started looking for a new part-time job. But honestly, I shouldn't have to leave. She's the one who broke the rules. I'm still here, I still do my job, I still use my cane when I need it. And I refuse to hide my disability just because some coworker thinks she's a detective. If she tries anything else, I'll sue. I have a lawyer friend who says I have a case for hostile work environment. I'm ready to fight because my pain is real. And I won't let anyone tell me otherwise. But sometimes the invasion comes from the top. I thought I was done with workplace nightmares after the Casey thing, but no, life had another lesson for me. I work at a company where the CEO has favorites. Let's call the CEO Dick because that's what he is. And his golden boy is Bob. Bob S. been riding a wave of promotions for years, all because he became a family man. His wife became a SAHM after their kid was born, and Dick thought that was the most admirable thing ever. Never mind that Bob started showing up later and later to the office, missing more and more work, sleeping at his desk. Dick promoted him anyway. Bob wasn't my problem back then, I was his supervisor. I focused on my own team. Then about a year ago, Bob and his family had to move across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion as soon as they settled. He went from under me to my level, and then a couple months ago he got promoted again. Now he outranks me. Meanwhile, I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I got silently demoted for having the audacity to have a baby. My work never changed. But Dick treats me like I'm the office mother, reliable, invisible, expected to clean up everyone else's mess. So imagine my surprise when Bob texts me out of the blue. I'm at home making dinner, my toddler is screaming in the background, and I see his name pop up. He asks me to house his wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January. He mentions, as an afterthought, that he could ask the company to pay for his accommodations if that didn't work. Like he was doing me a favor by giving me an out. I stared at my phone, gobsmacked, utter gobsmacked. My dude, you want me to host your entire family while you go on a work trip, in my home, with my own baby and my own stress, and you think the alternative is you getting a hotel paid for by the company? The same company that hasn't given me a raise in 4 years. Get the absolute fuck out of here. I didn't respond right away. I took a picture of the text and sent it to my husband. He said, "Is this a joke?" I said, "I wish." I went to work the next day and had a meeting with Dick, and sure enough, within the first 5 minutes he brought it up. Bob mentioned he reached out to you about hosting his family. I think it would be a great team-building opportunity, show that we're all family here. I kept my voice calm. I said, "Dick, I have a 2-year-old. My house is not set up for another toddler and a dog, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to be asked to provide free housing for a colleague's family, especially when I'm being demoted and not getting raises." Dick's face went red. He said, "It's not about that, it's about being a team player. Bob is under a lot of pressure. His wife needs support." I said, "I need support too. I have a child, I have a job, I'm not a hotel." He didn't like that. He told me to think about it and left. I went back to my desk and started typing an email to HR, but I stopped. I'd been at this company long enough to know HR protects the company, not the employees. And Bob was the golden boy, so I started looking for other jobs. But the story doesn't end there. A few days later, Bob texted me again. "Hey, just checking in. Did you think about my request? My wife and dog are really looking forward to staying with you." I was livid. I replied, "Bob, I'm not comfortable with that. Please find other arrangements." He didn't take it well. He went to Dick and Dick called me into his office again. This time he wasn't asking. He said, "You need to do this. It's a direct request from a superior. If you refuse, I'll have to note that in your file as insubordination." I said, "You can't force me to let someone live in my house. That's not a work assignment." Dick said, "It's a team-building exercise." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Team building? By having me host your golden boy's family while he gets a paid hotel. That's not team building, that's exploitation. He told me to leave. I went to HR anyway. I filed a formal complaint about the hostile work environment, about the demotion, about the request. HR took notes but said they needed to investigate. A week later they came back and said Bob's request was inappropriate but not policy violating. They told Dick to stop pushing, but they also told me I should consider being more flexible for the good of the team. I was done. I found a new job. I gave my 2 weeks notice. On my last day, Bob came up to me and said, "I'm sorry things worked out this way. I really just needed help." I looked at him and said, "You needed help. You're making 6 figures and getting promoted for having a family. I'm barely scraping by. You don't need my help. You need a reality check." He didn't say anything. He just walked away, and I walked out the door and never looked back. I'm at a new company now where my boss respects me and my boundaries. I still think about that place sometimes. About how they expected me to give up my home for someone else's convenience. About how Dick treated me like a mother who should take care of everyone. I learned something valuable. No job is worth that. Your home, your time, your family, those are yours. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But that's not the only time workplace boundaries got crossed in ways that left me questioning everything. I thought I'd seen it all after the Bob thing, but there's always another layer. I've always been a private person, 9 years at the same office working my way up from the bottom, and I never talked about my home life. Not because I was ashamed. I have a great husband, two twin daughters, a dog, a nice house. I play softball, I kayak, I mountain climb. I have a Facebook page with a shortened version of my name, but I keep work and home separate. It's not that I don't like my coworkers. I do. We have great conversations about movies, books, current events, but my family is mine. My time outside work is mine. I don't see why anyone at work needs to know what my kids are doing or where my husband works. That drove Melinda crazy. Melinda was hired about a year ago, and from day one she made it her mission to know everyone's business. Not in a friendly, getting-to-know-you way. In a way that felt like she was collecting ammunition. She'd sidle up to you at lunch, ask seemingly innocent questions, then file away the answers like a secret agent. Most people didn't notice. They liked her. She was charming, always smiling, always bringing in treats. But I noticed. I watched her watch people. She tried everything with me. So do you have any kids? I'd say, I enjoy my cats. I don't have cats. She'd ask, what did you do this weekend? I'd say, oh, just relaxed. She'd press, you seem like the hiking type. I'd shrug and change the subject. She never got anything, not a single scrap. My coworkers started calling me the Enigma. They'd joke about it, but I didn't mind. I had real friendships with some of them. We'd talk about music, politics, stupid workplace dramas. We didn't need to know each other's middle names. Then came the Friday that changed everything. Melinda walked into the office at 9 a.m. with this look on her face. I've never seen a person look so smug. She was practically vibrating. At lunch, she gathered everyone in the break room and announced, I have news. Everyone looked up. She said, I know everything about our Enigma. My stomach dropped. I kept my face neutral. She started listing things. She's married. Her husband's name is Mark. They have twin daughters ages 7. They have a golden retriever named Gus. They live in a 4-bedroom house in Oakwood. She plays softball in a rec league on Tuesdays. She kayaks on weekends. She mountain climbs twice a year. She has a Facebook account under Ali, short for Alexandra, and her maiden name is Peterson. She said it like she'd solved a cold case. Everyone stared at me. Some looked impressed. Some looked uncomfortable. I felt like I'd been stripped naked in front of the office. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I said very calmly, how did you get that information? Melinda smiled. I used white pages and cross-referenced your photo. You're not as hidden as you think. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I locked the stall and just stood there breathing. I felt violated. I felt watched. I thought about all those months of her asking questions, her persistence, her little smiles. This wasn't curiosity. This was stalking. I went to HR that same day. I told them everything. They said they'd talk to Melinda. They told me to document the incident. I did. I wrote down every question she'd ever asked me, every time she'd lingered too long at my desk. The next week, Melinda was called into a meeting. She came out looking furious. She didn't talk to me for days, but then she started making comments, loud enough for me to hear. Some people think they're better than everyone else. Privacy is for people with secrets. I wonder what else she's hiding. I ignored her, but the damage was done. My coworkers started treating me differently. Some were curious, asking about my kids. Some were awkward, like they'd seen something they shouldn't have. A few told me they were on my side. Hank, one of the older guys, pulled me aside and said, I know what she did was wrong, but be careful, she's done this before. He told me about another coworker, Lucy, who left 6 months after she started. Melinda had found out she was going through a divorce and spread it around the office. Lucy couldn't handle the pity, she quit. And then there was Rob, who'd confided in Melinda about his sick mother. The next week, everyone knew. Rob's boss pulled him off a major project because he assumed Rob couldn't handle it. I realized then that this was a pattern. Melinda collected information like currency. She used it to gain favor, to control, to feel powerful. And I had nothing to give her, so she took it anyway. I went back to HR. I said, this is a pattern. She's done this to others. She needs to be stopped. HR said they'd investigate, but nothing happened. Melinda is still there. She still smiles at me. She still makes little comments. I've started locking my desk. I've changed my Facebook settings to maximum privacy. I've told my husband not to post photos of me, but I shouldn't have to live like this. I shouldn't have to hide in my own life just because some insecure snoop decided she needed to know everything about me. I'm still at that job. I still don't talk about my personal life. And I still refuse to let her win. But every time I see her smile, I feel my stomach clench because I know she's watching. She's always watching. But that wasn't the only time a coworker crossed a line. A few years later, I moved to a new location closer to home, thinking I'd finally escaped the office drama. I loved my new team. My boss, Amy, was genuinely great, supportive, fair, the kind of manager who actually listened. My colleague, Casey, and I got along okay at first. We were both assistant coordinators reporting to Amy. I was open about the fact that I didn't want a promotion. I already had a full-time job. This was a part-time gig to pad my savings and keep my anxiety in check. Casey, on the other hand, had been gunning for a promotion for years. Everyone knew it. She worked long hours, took on extra projects, and made sure Amy noticed. I have a condition called chronic pain. It's not something you can see. I explain it like this. Imagine your baseline pain is a 2 or 3 out of 10 normal people live there. For me, it's a 6 every day, like a pulled muscle that never heals. Some days I'm higher, some days lower. I own canes, but I only use them on days when I'm at a 7 or above. I have all the proper paperwork filed with my job. I have a handicap placard for my car. I don't flaunt it, but I'm not ashamed of it either. One Sunday last January, I had a bad day. I was at a 7, maybe an 8. I used my cane. I went to the grocery store, hobbled around for 20 minutes and drove home. That was it. I didn't think anything of it. Monday morning, Casey was waiting for me at my desk. She had her phone in her hand. She said, "I saw you yesterday." I said, "Okay." She said, "You were walking fine, no cane, you were carrying a full shopping bag." I stared at her. I said, "I used my cane all morning. I put it in the car when I went in the store. And I needed to carry groceries." She shook her head. "I have video." My stomach dropped. I said, "What video?" She pulled up her phone and showed me. She had filmed me from across the parking lot. The angle was zoomed in, blurry, but you could see me walking from my car to the store entrance. I wasn't using the cane, it was in the car. At the entrance, I stopped, shifted the bag, and walked inside. The video lasted maybe 15 seconds. Casey said, "This proves you're not disabled. You're faking it for the placard." I felt like I'd been punched. I said, "That video is from a distance. You can't see my face clearly. And even if you could, I don't have to use a cane every second of every day. That's not how chronic pain works." She said, "I'm sending this to Amy and to HR." She did. By noon, I was sitting in Amy's office. Amy looked uncomfortable. She said, "Casey brought this to my attention. I need to hear your side." I explained my condition. I explained that I only use the cane on bad days, that the day before had started bad but improved slightly by the time I got to the store, that I'd put the cane in the car because I needed both hands for the bags. Amy listened. She said, "I believe you, but we have to go through the process. HR will contact you." I went home that night and cried, not because I was afraid of losing my job, but because of the violation. Someone had followed me, had waited in a parking lot, had recorded me without my permission, all to prove I was a liar. HR called me 2 days later. They said they needed to review Casey's video and my medical documentation. I provided everything: doctor's notes, past accommodation requests, the placard registration. They said they'd get back to me. While I waited, Casey avoided me but made snide comments to other coworkers. I heard through the grapevine that she was telling people I was a fraud, that I was taking advantage of the system, that I didn't deserve the parking spot. A few coworkers believed her, most didn't, but the damage was spreading. A week later, HR called me in again. They said the video was inconclusive. They couldn't determine my level of disability from a 15-second clip. They also said that Casey's actions, following and recording me, were a violation of company policy. They gave her a written warning. I thought that would be the end of it. It was. Casey escalated. She started coming in early and leaving late, making sure she was seen. She sent emails to Amy questioning my work output, my hours, my availability. She even contacted the local police, claiming I had a fraudulent handicap placard. The police showed up at my house one evening. I had to stand in my doorway and explain my medical condition to an officer. He looked at my documentation, looked at me and said, "You're fine, she's wasting our time." He left, but I felt sick. I filed a police report of my own. I documented every instance of Casey following me, recording me, spreading lies. I got a restraining order against her. The court granted it. At work, Amy told me they couldn't fire Casey because of the restraining order. They said that was a personal matter, not a workplace issue. I was stuck. Every day I walked into that office knowing Casey was 3 desks away, glaring at me. The tension was unbearable. 2 months later, I found another job. I put in my notice. On my last day, Casey walked up to me and said, "You're a liar and you know it." I looked at her. I said, "I hope you get everything you deserve." I left and never looked back, but that video, she still has it somewhere, and I still wonder if one day she'll put it online, try to ruin my reputation. I can't control that. All I can do is keep living my life, using my cane when I need it, and hoping that the next time someone decides to play detective, they'll think twice before crossing a line. But workplace drama doesn't always come from jealous coworkers or sneaky snoops. Sometimes it comes straight from the top. And this next story, this one still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. I work at a mid-sized company where the CEO, let's call him Dick, because he is one, has this golden boy. His name is Bob. Bob and his wife had a baby. She became a stay-at-home mom, and Dick found that so admirable he promoted Bob on the spot. Never mind that Bob started showing up later and later to the office. Never mind that he missed more and more work, and when he was actually there, he'd be sleeping at his desk. I let it slide because he wasn't my direct report. I had my own team to worry about. About a year ago, Bob and his family had to move across the country for a family emergency. And what do you know? Another promotion as soon as they settled. He went from being under me in the hierarchy to being on my level. Then, a couple months ago, he got promoted again. Now he outranks me. Meanwhile, I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I was silently demoted for having the audacity to have a baby, even though nothing about my work changed. Dick acted like a spoiled older child who just got a new sibling. I was the mother figure at the office, the one who kept everything running, while Bob was the family man who got all the rewards for doing less. So imagine my surprise when Bob texts me out of the blue. It's December 3rd, 2025. I'm at my desk sipping lukewarm coffee when my phone buzzes. It's Bob. "Hey, I need a favor. My wife, toddler, and dog need a place to stay for a week in January. Can you host them? If not, I can ask the company to pay for a hotel." I stared at my phone, gobsmacked, utter gobsmacked. This guy who just got handed another promotion, who has never once acknowledged my work, wants me to house his entire family for a week. In my home with a toddler and a dog, and he throws in the company pays for a hotel as an afterthought, I didn't even respond. I closed the chat and took a deep breath. My first thought was, is this a joke? My second thought was, Dick is going to bring this up in our meeting later today. And sure enough, 2 hours later, I walked into Dick's office. He was sitting behind his desk looking like a smug toad. He didn't even say hello. So Bob mentioned he asked you to host his family. I think it's a great idea. It'll show team spirit. You should do it. I said no. Dick blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not hosting his family. I have my own life. I have my own child. I don't have the space, the time, or the desire. Dick leaned forward. You're being uncooperative. Bob is a valuable member of this company. We need to support him. I wanted to scream. I said, I haven't had a raise in 4 years. I was demoted for having a baby. Bob gets promoted for having a baby. Where's the logic? Where's the support for me? Dick waved his hand. That's different. Bob's wife stays home. That's admirable. You chose to keep working. That's your choice. I felt my jaw tighten. So my choice to work and raise a child is worth less than his choice to have his wife stay home. Is that what you're saying? Dick didn't answer. He just said, I think you should reconsider. Take the rest of the day to think about it. I walked out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and started updating my resume. Because that was the moment I realized nothing would change. I was the workhorse, the reliable one, the one who held everything together. But in Dick's eyes, I was just the mother figure, the one you asked to do the thankless work while the golden boys get the praise and promotions. I didn't host Bob's family. I didn't even respond to his text. The next week, Dick called me into his office again. He said, Bob is disappointed. He expected more from you. I said, I expected more from this company. I handed him my notice. I'm still working there now, but only until I find something else. Every day I see Bob walking around, grinning, taking credit for my team's work. And every day I remind myself that I'm not the crazy one. I'm not the unreasonable one. I'm the one who finally said no. That was the last straw. I started sending out applications that night. I didn't look back. Because you can only be the office doormat for so long before you realize you deserve better. And I do, we all do. But not all workplace drama comes from jealous rivals or clueless golden boys. Sometimes it comes from someone who just can't stand not knowing your business. I've worked in this office for about 9 years. 9 years of keeping my head down, doing my job, and maintaining a strict separation between work and home. I'm not ashamed of my life, I'm just private. I'd rather talk about a movie I saw or a book I read than share what I did over the weekend. My coworkers are the opposite. They love to talk about their kids, their vacations, their spouse's annoying habits, and they always try to include me. Hey, what did you do this weekend? Oh, nothing much, just relaxed. Come on, you have to have something. Any plans for the holidays? Probably just staying in. I got very good at redirecting. I'd ask about their weekend, their kids, their dog. It worked for years. They started calling me the Enigma. I didn't mind. I made genuine friendships at work. We talked about sports, politics, TV shows. There's more to life than family, and I enjoyed being an adult during those 10 hours a day, not just a mom. Because here's the thing, I'm married. I have twin daughters, a dog, a nice house. I play softball, I kayak, I mountain climb. I even have a Facebook profile under a shortened version of my first name and my married name. I thought it was impossible to find unless you knew exactly what to look for. I was wrong. We hired Melinda about a year ago. From day one, she took it upon herself to become the office snoop. She'd smile and ask questions, always friendly, always curious. But I noticed she wasn't just getting to know people. She was cataloging information. She'd remember the smallest details, who was going through a divorce, who had a sick parent, who got passed over for a promotion, and she'd file it away for later. I never gave her anything. Every time she asked, I deflected. She'd try to corner me at lunch, but I'd excuse myself to take a call. She'd linger at my desk, waiting for me to slip up. I didn't. I thought I was safe. Then last Friday, Melinda came into work looking like the cat who ate the goldfish. She had a smug grin plastered on her face. At lunch, she called everyone over to the break room. I have a confession to make, she said, holding up her phone. I did a little digging on our mysterious friend here. She turned the screen toward me. It was my Facebook profile. My real name, my husband's name, my daughter's names. She had photos, pictures of me at my daughter's birthday party at a softball game standing by my front door with my dog. You're married, she said, like she'd won a prize. And you have twins and a nice house. And you play softball and you kayak and you mountain climb. I found all of this on your public photos. You can't hide from me. The room went quiet. My coworkers stared at me like I'd been living a double life. I felt my face go hot, not from embarrassment, from rage. She had no right. How did you find that? I asked, my voice steady. White pages, your name plus your city. It wasn't hard. I didn't say anything else. I got up, walked to HR, and filed a report. I told them everything, the stalking, the invasion of privacy, the hostile environment she was creating. HR said they would talk to her. The next week, Melinda's behavior changed. She stopped being friendly. She started making snide comments about how I was hiding things and not a team player. She tried to turn my coworkers against me. Most of them didn't buy it. They told me they didn't care that I was private, they liked me for me. But a couple started looking at me differently. And then Melinda found out about the big project. My boss had assigned me a major initiative, one that could make or break my career. It was time-sensitive, high visibility, and Melinda decided she wanted it. She went to my boss and claimed that I was unstable because I had a secret life. She said I couldn't be trusted with confidential information. My boss laughed in her face, but she didn't stop. She started spreading rumors that my husband was in debt, that my kids were troublemakers, that I was faking my hobbies to seem interesting. It was exhausting. I kept working, kept my head down, and refused to engage. Then I heard from a friend that Melinda was planning to contact a higher-up with her findings. That's when I went to HR again. I demanded a formal investigation into her conduct. I provided screenshots of her Facebook stalking, her comments, her attempts to sabotage me. HR took it seriously this time. They gave her a final written warning and moved her to a different department. But the damage was done. I didn't feel safe at work anymore. I stopped eating in the break room. I stopped making small talk. I became even more private, even more guarded, and I started updating my resume. It took me 3 months to find a new job. When I put in my notice, my boss asked me to stay. I said no. Melinda was still there, 3 cubicles away, and I couldn't breathe. On my last day, she walked past my desk and whispered, "You can't hide forever." I didn't even look at her. I just packed my box and walked out. And I knew I was right to leave because no job is worth that invasion of privacy. No paycheck is worth feeling like someone is always watching. I've learned that sometimes the people you work with aren't your friends. They're just people who share a building, and that's fine, but I'll never again let anyone dig into my life without my permission. My family, my home, my hobbies, they're mine, and they'll stay mine.